I wanted to begin with presenting a little bit for those who will be viewing on what the Wyatt Debate League expects out of our coaches, new and experienced, and what we have to offer as a league. I know uh, when I send out emails, I try to cover all of the bases, and staring at that many words on the screen is tiring, especially when you've been doing it all day. Um, so the main things that we offer as a league are financial and educational resources, alongside our lovely tournaments, which we hope to get to being in person very soon. Uh, I want to go on and share my screen. I want to start with the CFL because it is one of the organizations that whenever I mention it, people don't know about it. Um, it's it's almost a ghost organization, which is sad because it isn't as active or involved, or it doesn't require as much involvement. Um, but it is a fantastic opportunity to compete in if you run a high school team, which is still the majority of our league. Um, it is another national tournament. It was very recently in Louisville, and I believe actually, I don't want to speak anything out of turn. I know the NSDA will be returning to Louisville soon, but Katie Cecil down at LaRue County High School runs the league for the state, for the Archdiocese of Kentucky. You do not need to be Catholic or at a Catholic school to register for the Kentucky Catholic Forensic League. Um, and the very cool thing about it is the number of students who get to go to nationals for a given division depend entirely upon how many schools are registered in the state for the entire league. So we support the KCFL by wanting to get as many schools registered for the KCFL as possible so that we can send as many competitors to nationals as want to go. If we get, I do not know off the top of my head what the cutoff lines are, but if we can get as many schools registered as possible to hit the maximum, which I believe is 6 entries per division, it does not matter then if only the 6 students register in Lincoln Douglas debate, all 6 will go to nationals. And that is a great opportunity for students to compete and see on the national stage. Going to any national tournament can be a once in a lifetime opportunity sometimes for students to see another part of the country, to compete against students that they would not get a chance to compete against, and any opportunity for our students to do that is wonderful, especially since, as I will get to, one of the resources we do offer is travel assistance. Not an issue last year. If we can get our students out there, let's do that. So if you have not yet registered for the KCFL, do that. If you were not planning to do that, go to the kycfl.org website and do that, and have Katie Cecil send me the invoice so we can pay for you, because we will cover that enrollment. The next organization is Kissel. Everybody, I believe, has already sent me their invoices. If you have not, do that. We cover only the debate portion. If you have a speech team, you are responsible for that portion of your enrollment. But regardless, paying that debate portion means you're eligible to compete in the debate state tournament at the end of the year. If you are a new coach, you can sign up to be in a mentorship relationship with a more experienced coach in the state of Kentucky. You also are then, if you're a more experienced coach, the reverse is true. You can choose to be a mentor for a newer coach. And the executive director, Steve Meadows, is a wonderful man, has years and years of experience uh, in the forensics community in the state of Kentucky, in leading the Kissel organization, as he leads the Speak organization, which is running their annual new coach conference next weekend. And he does those pairings. He is a great resource to bounce questions off of if you have them as well. As the man behind Kissel and the man making those pairings, and the man who takes your money, or our money, as the case might be when you register, just grade A, 100% gold right there. So again, we cover your debate dues to Kissel so that you can compete at that state tournament, show the state of Kentucky that we in Louisville have the best debaters, and prove it. National Speech and Debate Association. If you want to compete at a debate tournament and a national debate tournament that is not the KCFL, that is going to be the National Speech and Debate Association National Tournament. You have to be a member, and we pay those dues. They also offer a team resource package. We will pay for that as well. You can either pay directly and be reimbursed, or you can sign up and send your invoice to me, and we will pay directly. It is $150 to join for high schools, $75 for middle schools, and the resource package is $200, I believe, if it is not discounted, or $99 if it has been discounted at the league rate. There are additional one-time fees for coaches and students to become members of the NSDA, where you can track their points and gain ranks through competition, because the NSDA is an honor society. We do not cover that cost. You are responsible for that cost, but the actual annual renewal fee we do pay. I did mention earlier travel assistance that would apply for the NSDA national tournament. I do not have details. It is not a set stipend or a set amount on the amount that we can provide. We currently have set aside within our budget, I believe, about $5,000 that we hope to be able to provide teams this year to travel to national tournaments. So how much we can provide teams and schools depends on how many schools that are members qualify and how large of a contingent they qualify. But there are always fundraising opportunities and often other assistance or methods of assistance available. Now, I just want to let everybody know that we have funds at our disposal to be able to help you achieve this. Don't let the cost of travel, as hopefully travel becomes an option again later this year, don't let that scare you away. Educational resources. The TRP that I've mentioned. Also, victory briefs. At no cost to you is the $700 full classroom membership. It gives you access to all of the topic briefs that victory briefs provide. It's full analysis and evidence on every Lincoln Douglas topic, on every public forum topic. It provides a virtual classroom. And it is going to freak out because it is kind of there it goes. With video lectures on topics designed as web courses. So with cases, with videos that your students can review and can participate in, just exactly how you would expect any high quality web learning module to be structured. Every school gets one login. If you do not already have a login, or even if you do and need a new discount code for this year, you can reach out to me. Every year, that's going to be a renewal process with a new discount code that you will receive through the league. If at any point you want to strike out on your own, you don't want to be a member, you can always get that classroom membership yourself. But we are always happy to provide our members with the resources through Victory Briefs. They've been a wonderful partner with us for many, many years. We also share on Dropbox the resources that our camp students receive every year. On the team Dropbox, there is a folder now for shared camp evidence that includes the 2021 campers evidence. It includes every file, every sample case, every ebook that they might have received during their camp experience that has been turned in. Those are property of the Wilson Wyatt Debate League as part of the contract that they received in order to receive their scholarships. So if you've previously signed the form, the confidentiality form to receive access to the Dropbox, you should have access to it. If you do not have access, reach out to me and we will get you access to it, because that is very useful information that you can use. Feel free to distribute to your students and as needed to help coach and help yourself and help them, just with the understanding that that is for our use and your students' use, and it is not to be shared, it is not to be spread on the internet in the same way that our camp students would not share or spread it themselves. It needs to remain within the league. With that being said, John, I'm going to go on and move over to you. I do have a little presentation to give in a little bit. I know Sarah had some suggestions or was interested in seeing a breakdown of Tab Room, and I'll give that presentation in a little bit, but I know you also had some great presentations. Thank you.
All right, so a couple of things I had been asked to talk about were basically how to recruit a team and also how to choose with those kids. Should you do Lincoln Douglas or public forum? And so, sorry, sleeping baby over there. It's hard to find an area of my house that's usable. No, the door. All right, so I put together a short presentation. Not that we need it, but being a teacher, you got to use Google Docs or Classroom or slides or something. So I'll share my screen and okay. So recruitment, finding your team and keeping them, right? So I work at Fairdale High School. Our school, obviously isn't the most high income school or anything like that, but we've had a lot of success in debate. So it doesn't matter if you come from an affluent area or if you think your kids are top notch. Really, you just need one or two kids to make a team, which is awesome for debate. And it kind of grows organically from there when you start seeing some success and other kids hear about it. So in terms of recruiting a team, there's a couple different phases of recruiting a team. The first is the start of the year. So we're just starting back to school. It's the very, very beginning of the season. This is prime time for recruiting people. The first step that's probably already passed, but to keep on your calendars for next year, is registration or open house. If your school lets you have a table or a sign-up page, if you can be lumped in with athletics or activities or chess club or academic team, try to have a table, try to be there, or have a kid be there, even better if you can have debaters there to talk to their peers. Having a table when parents come in and telling them why debate's important and what their kid can get out of debate goes a long way towards getting them in and checking it out and having parent support as well. So that's a great step if you can start at the beginning of the year. I do posters around the school. So our school doesn't have any rules against doing posters, but I keep them super simple. My poster literally says, please join the debate team. Got questions or are you interested? Visit Mr. Doctor in room 312. So it says debate team in big letters. It says, visit me in 312 in big letters, and it says interested or want to join in kind of small letters, because I found the more I put on a flyer, the less kids read it, because really they only look at it when they're walking through the hallways. And so, I figured if I can get them to walk all the way to my classroom, then there's a good chance they're interested enough to actually show up for practice. And that way I know they know where my classroom is when they need to come to practice. The posters I put out, I usually just do little half sheets on very, very brightly colored paper. Neon yellow, neon orange, neon blue, neon red. You can change up the colors, but I just put them in the high density areas, the stairwells, by the bathroom, stuff like that, because I know kids see them. Usually the day or two after I put those flyers out, I've had at least 5 to 10 kids come and just ask me, like, so what is debate? What do I have to do if I join the debate team? Why should I join the debate team? And it just kind of starts a conversation. I ask the kid to get their name, and we get their information, and that's kind of where we begin. I do also ask our principal to read announcements, fun facts about debate, something that's memorable. Sometimes announcements like, hey, you want to be a lawyer? Come join the debate team. Practice being a junior lawyer, or what looks good on your college resume? Being on the debate team. So we kind of go over it that way. It's short, it's sweet. The announcement basically is a little plug. Come join the debate team. Visit Mr. Doctor in room 312. And if I keep it really simple rather than being long and monotonous, it is more likely to get read by my principal, because she doesn't want to have to read something that's super long over and over again, and the kids remember it a lot better. And the last thing I do at the start of the year is I update our Google Classroom. We have a little Google Classroom account that we started, especially when we started doing the online debating a lot more. We set it up, we invite kids, it has our announcements, it has our schedule, it has links to some of the videos of themselves or resources that we can use. And they're very, very familiar with Google Classroom. So it gives them a level of comfort. And in our Google Classroom, unlike some classes, we actually encourage kids to type into each other into there, to message each other, to write in the stream, so they can ask questions. They can set up times to meet each other. So we try to set that Google Classroom up. And if you have that all going for you at the beginning of the year, it makes it really easy to, when you meet a kid, you write their name down, you add them to the Google Classroom, you know who they are, and you can kind of help keep track of them, figure out where they are, why they're coming to practice or why they're not. And every time I do this, the kids ask me, well, why should I join debate? What do we do on debate team? What do you do if I go to a debate tournament? And the first thing I always focus on, because this is what the kids want to hear, is that it's fun and it's a competition, right? You're trying to prove that you can win. You're trying to prove that you're the best. You're trying to prove that you're good at arguing, as they want to say, if they've never been in a debate. But we tell them, you're going to have fun. We're going to be competitive. We're going to have fun. It's not easy. I never lie to them and tell them it's easy. I tell them it is a lot of work, but we have a blast, right? We get to do a lot of stuff as teams. We get to, go to tournaments. We get to go to different schools. We get to meet people from different schools. If we get you to practice hard enough, maybe you'll win a trophy or medal, a ribbon, a plaque. And they love hearing that. A lot of kids, they're looking for something to do if they've approached me in my room, if they've heard my announcements or seen the flyers. And all the other kids, if you tell them, hey, sometimes we have food and snacks, that's a big draw too. All the kids are interested. Are we going to have some snacks here or there? When we have in-person tournaments, Brian's awesome. There's coffee, there's breakfast bars, there's fruit in the morning, there's pizza at lunch, there's all sorts of drinks and sodas and things. So there's so much to do that we can do food-wise. And the kids, obviously food is a perk, especially in high school where I teach at. And then there's obviously the other things that we can do as debaters, and why it's good. A resume for college applications, right? It's one of the top extracurricular activities. I tell them, if you stick with debate and do student government and part of beta club and you keep your grades up, I can guarantee you a college scholarship. And that has been true for every debater that's ever walked through my door. If you stick it out and you do some of the other extracurriculars we ask you to do, you're going to get really good college scholarship money. There are actual debate scholarships and debate camps like Brian mentioned. So it's not just at our school, it's a league-wide thing. So I kind of tell them like, our league has all these opportunities and things that you're going to have a chance to do if you want to. And that kind of excites them. And then a lot of kids come because they want to be a lawyer, right? So any student who tells you, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up, I tell them you have to join debate. This is a great way to get used to reading materials and creating a case and listening skills and note-taking skills. And so basically any kid that tells me, oh, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up, I'm like, all right, let's join the debate team. Let's really test this out. So those are all reasons that when they finally come to me, when I finally get to meet them face to face, I have a short conversation. The first time I actually sit down with them, that's when I kind of go over the resume, the scholarships, camps. If you want to become a lawyer, this is a great way to do it. But when they first come to meet with me, I talk about how it's competitive, how it's fun, how we have snacks from time to time, and they should come to a meeting and check it out. Got to rope them in. Mid-season, so we're kind of getting close to this phase. So at the very, very beginning of the year, you can set up a bunch of stuff and put out flyers and try to get people at registration. But at this point in the year, I start going to other teachers like, hey, you've met your students, you kind of have gotten to know them. Do you have any student that looks like they could be on the debate team? Do you have any student who really loves to read or has a really strong vocabulary? Maybe they have a high MAP test score. So I target English teachers because the English teachers generally are, the ones that are having kids read the stories and read books. And, they know their MAP scores much, much better than, if I asked a social studies teacher. And so I asked them like, hey, do you have any kids that might be interested in joining the debate team? And I track those kids down and I go up and ask them like, hey, one of your teachers said you might be awesome at this. Would you want to come try it out? We practice after school on Thursdays. Another way, if you've tried that or you don't get many teacher referrals, any kid that shows up to practice a couple of times, I'll ask them to bring a friend. Hey, you're doing a great job on the debate team. Can you try to find one person from your classes? It could be your friend, it could be someone from your class that you think's great, but try to challenge those team members to bring one person with them to the next practice. I mentioned at the beginning of my slides, we don't need a ton of people to have a debate team. If you have just even a handful of kids, 1, 2, 3 kids, you have a team. So it's not like they have to recruit an army. I actually find that having too many kids is more problematic than not having enough. And then I obviously, if I get super desperate, I recruit my own classes. Hey, I'm a science teacher, by the way. Hey, you're really great at science. I love how you use, this chart or this graph to explain yourself in class. Do you think you could use that to convince somebody that you're right? And, I talked to them about debate practices and tournaments. One of my classroom traditions is to tell people like good news or bad news or funny stories that happen over the weekend. And anytime we have a debate tournament the weekend before, when they ask me what's your good news or bad news, I always pump up debate, tell them how great it was, tell them how much fun all the kids had. And so, I kind of use that as a recruitment tool as well. So, teacher referrals from other teachers, asking the students that have shown up to bring a friend or bring someone they think's good. They don't have to be friends. And then continuing to make announcements at school. The positive announcements go a really long way. I'll have kids come to me in December or January, and they'll be like, hey, I heard about on the announcements how the debate team had a kid finish in the top 3 this past weekend. Can I join that? And I'm like, absolutely. Where have you been? We've done registration, we've done flyers, we've done all this stuff, but sure enough, kids still show up. And so, having positive announcements, keeping that positive light, even if the tournament was terrible, even if it didn't go so well and the kids didn't do as well as you wanted them to, or they expected to, you can still put in that announcement. The debate team competed this weekend and they had matches against Manual and Trinity and Fairdale High School. And they got to go compete against all these schools from around the area, and they did very well. Maybe they went 0-5, and you're just saying they did very well. Or our school is so proud of them to represent Seneca, or they're so proud that they represented Doss, or we're so proud that they represented Western or Central. I mean, that goes a long way. Even if the kids are a little down on themselves, hearing their names on the announcement especially if they win a trophy or medal or something, then they're super proud. It goes a really long way to getting new kids to come and keeping your kids here. And then finally, the off season. I think that's the one that gets neglected the most. Try to do something fun with them. It could be like a holiday party or end of the year party. These kids work really, really hard, and showing them that you appreciate that, even if you just buy them each a box of Little Debbie's and call it a party. Like, it sounds silly, but it really does go a long way. Maybe a personal note or a card to thank them for all their hard work. It helps keep kids around, and it draws new kids in when they see, hey, the debate team's having a party. I want to join that. That sounds fun. Checking up on them, just, one text a month. When you think of debate team, you're like, oh yeah, I have 2 kids that were juniors last year that are coming back. Like, maybe I should check on them and see how their summer's going. It kind of keeps them engaged, and the end of the season, a few months go by before school starts back up. And so that way it kind of keeps them engaged and thinking about debate as well. And then finally, if you can swing it, and it's not always possible at all schools, it's not really gone over so well at my school. But if you can get your athletic director to include debate in the sports banquet, right, with chess team or the academic teams, it's great because it gets them recognized in front of their peers. And a lot of times we try to do like more of an academic team banquet, like have the quick recall team and the chess team, the debate team, future problem solvers. Some years we have that, some years we don't. But we try to get them involved, and it really goes a long, long way towards getting those kids to stick around, and also recognition from other athletes and other kids who are active in school to be like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, I want to try that. So I was going to ask, do you guys have any questions about recruiting, or any issues you're having with getting kids to actually show up?
It's hard because my experiences are both in pandemic years, so I think, like, honestly, it's actually going pretty well considering our current circumstances. But I do suspect there will still need to be some effort put into understanding commitment and like what a commitment it is. But I also have a few kids who like clearly love arguing on the internet, and like I think are genuinely going to be down for this in a way that is new to me as a coach. Because last year I had such beginners who were still like learning just a lot of foundational stuff. So I don't know. I guess we'll see how the commitment thing goes, but I also feel confident I'm going to have at least one pretty good team to start out with. You know what I mean? Yeah. But there's those the edge ones that you're like, you want them to be there, but you also need to like be pushing them to do it. Like if you're doing it, you got to do it.
So yeah, kind of like, at least in my experience, I know exactly what you're talking about, because that is every year, every single year. And the pandemic years make it harder because it's harder to reach those kids, and it's harder to get in contact with them and like kind of recruit them. Now that we're back in person, I feel like there's a lot more success because we can at least see each other face to face, and you don't have to be in my class or a teacher that actually goes through and tells you about its class. Like, it's a lot easier because we do get them in person. But like, generally speaking, my year right now is pretty typical. I have a couple kids back from last year, 2, maybe 3, but right now 2. I have a bunch of new kids, mostly freshmen and sophomores. I've had 13 kids come to my room and tell me, I want to be on the debate team. Out of those, 9 have come to a practice. And I'm not discounting the others. They just weren't available. They couldn't stay after school to stay. And we're relatively new into the practice season. 9 have come to a practice, and 6 have come to multiple practices. And so I'm like, oh, well, I got 6. And then 2 of the ones that are returning haven't come to practice yet because they do band, and that's after school. And so like, we'll meet online. They kind of know what they're doing. So I'm like, I got 5 or 6 kids to work with. And I just tell them straight up, like, you are welcome to be on the debate team at any time. I love having people on the team. When it comes to competitions, that's when I get a little more serious. When you're committing to be there for your team or for your teammate, or we're registering you for an event and you're going to cost us money if you don't show up, that's when I need you to tell me how committed you are. I talked to their parents and stuff and just let them know, like, hey, like, if you can't come, you can't come. If something happens, that's not necessarily on you. That happens to me a lot at Fairdale. Like, someone's mom or dad's car breaks down, or they end up having to go to their stepdad's house or whatever. Like, I get that. But I just tell them, like, I really need to know, like, how committed are you to showing up for some of the tournaments? Because you can come to our practices, you can be part of the team, you can help do research, you can help judge, you can help listen to kids and tell them if their case sounds good or not. But then I try to differentiate between those and the kids that actually want to go out and compete against other schools. And so, I feel like if I can get, somewhere between 5 and 10 kids who are pretty hardcore committed, we can put together, 2 good teams, maybe 3, and represent our school well. And I always tell them, I'd rather have you go out and know you're going to do a good job than just toss you in there and be like, oh yeah, you came to 2 practices, like, go get slaughtered. Like, it's not good for them, and it's not good for the other team. But yeah, I agree with you, Sarah. That's a good point. It's hard to tell right now who's there 100%, who's not. So that's why I recruit all year long. Like, some of my better debate kids I've ever coached, I find them in December or January. It's like, oh, you're already halfway through the season, like, but hey, you're here. These kids have been doing it. You're a freshman or sophomore, you still have 3 more years or 2 more years, and I'm okay with that. Elizabeth, how's it going for you? Miss West.
Well, I have about 12 interested. So far, I only have 1 from last year coming back, so it's going to be a brand new team. My biggest obstacle has been figuring out when to even have practice. I have cafeteria duty until 3:10, and it's like a total mess as far as buses. So we're doing our practices virtually for the time being. I'm hoping that when things calm down a little bit, and we might possibly have an activity bus, being able to do it in person. But one of our APs said specifically we're not supposed to take kids home ourselves. And so that leaves a question, how are kids supposed to get home from this if they don't have a bus? So that's been.
No, I agree. Transportation has been an issue for some of the kids on my team as well. And typically how I handle that, I do a cool thing. Like, we used to have this time called Rise that we're not currently doing because of COVID, where we'd have in-time practice for clubs and activities and like enrichment opportunities for children, and as well as intervention times. And luckily, most kids joining the debate team don't really need too many interventions. They're usually on the enrichment side of activities.
Right.
But currently, we've been practicing after school as well as having open times. Right. Kind of flexible scheduling for after school times.
Right. And once Seneca starts having a club day once a month, that we'll have 1 meeting during a school day a month. I wish we could do more, but
yeah, it is
that,
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have 12 interests right now, that's a great start. All right. So kind of moving on. So you get your team together, right? And, it comes down to styles of debate, and so there are obviously multiple styles of debate. There's congressional debate, there's policy debate, and then the 2 that are at least a little bit more common, especially for younger coaches or younger teams, are Lincoln Douglas and public forum. So I wanted to give just kind of a brief overview of that and how to choose. Last year was my first year coaching any team in the Lincoln Douglas division. And that was solely because of COVID and the way I had to recruit my team and the availability of practices and stuff. But I'll kind of go over it, like, how do we choose that? And especially now that we're back in person, how do I choose and how do I get the kids to choose? So a really quick overview for those of you who are unfamiliar. Lincoln Douglas is a solo event. It's a one-on-one debate. So debaters will go through and they'll be assigned a side, but it does alternate. So maybe you're affirmative 2 debates out of a 5 debate tournament, negative on 3, or vice versa. But usually it's a relatively equivalent amount. 2 times you're affirmative and 3 times you're negative, or vice versa. And it's a very, structure like debates are. The affirmative speaks first, There's a cross-examination where they can ask questions. Then the negative gets time to speak. Then the first speaker can ask the negative person questions. And then they kind of go through the rebuttals. So that those are just a one-on-one debate. So those speakers are going constantly, right? They're constantly involved. It's very much of the pressure is on you as the debater to listen to them, to present your case, to make sure everything flows well. And it's a little bit more technical than public forum, but not anything intimidating that the kids can't handle. Public forum is a 2-person team. And I put or 1 or 3 in there just because I didn't want Brian to make fun of me. You can have a 1-person team if like a partner drops out. It's called going Maverick. Sometimes you have a 3-person team. You have an odd number of people. Maybe they can swap, and only 2 go at a time. But maybe 2 of your debaters go in round 1, and then the person who sat out that round goes and speaks round 2, and they kind of take turns and alternate. And 1 and 3-person teams aren't ideal in terms of making it to like elimination rounds, but it's a really good way to give kids experience if their partner either doesn't show up or if you just have an extra person, but they all want to compete together. The public forum debate.
I'm going to interrupt there real quick to add, saying 1 or 3 is not ideal is a little bit of an understatement.
Yeah.
What 1 person will not make it to elimination rounds in our league or almost anywhere. And
3 people won't either.
Yeah, three people actually this year, starting this year, will not be allowed in elimination rounds at our tournaments, and are usually not allowed anywhere. I've never seen them outside of our league tournaments. So they are still allowed though. But if you can find a partner, it's a better experience for everybody.
I agree. I knew you'd have to chime in. That's why I even included it in parentheses. But anyway, the way that works is the first speaker from each team gets a chance to talk and ask each other questions. Then the second speaker from each team gets a chance to talk and ask each other questions. And then it goes back to the first speaker again, and then the second speaker. So it's kind of, in this grand crossfire, they can all talk. So it's kind of a little bit more, I don't want to say downtime, because they actually are supposed to be doing something that time. They're supposed to be, preparing their rebuttal. They're supposed to be listening to the other team, but it's a little bit less spotlight time, a little bit less time for that person to be having to speak to the judge or speaking to the other team. So it's a little less intimidating for beginning debaters typically. So just like I said, it's kind of an overview. Lincoln Douglas is at one-on-one. It has to be one-on-one. Public forum, if you have 2 kids that are going to work together as a team, that is a possibility there. So the reasons for choosing, and obviously there's tons and tons of reasons to choose. The first one that stuck out to me is student personalities. If you've coached debate for a while, you've probably noticed there's some kids who come in and they are very social. They want to work with people. They want to have a partner. They need someone to tell them, oh, good job, or, oh, we lost this round, but it's okay. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe they can't take personal responsibility for themselves. And they're like, oh yeah, well, our team needs to do this better. Or they benefit from having a partner, right? Because they can say, oh, you did great. And they support each other. So those would be kids who you want to put in public forum. They can work together well with a partner. They are very, very codependent, or they are able to support their teammates. So it could be a good reason or a bad reason to be public forum. But if you think they need a partner or someone to support them, or they're going to be really good at supporting someone else, public forum is an awesome place for them. If they are a lone wolf, if they're rogue, if they don't like to work with other people, it really irritates them when someone criticizes their case. It really upsets them when their if you have a partner or another person in your practice and they tell them they shouldn't do something one way, if they're very stubborn in that sense, or extremely independent and they just want to try it on their own. It's like, hey, I got this. I want to see what I can do by myself. I don't need a partner. I think I can go solo. I think I can do it alone. I want to give it a shot. That's more of a Lincoln Douglas type kid. But like I said, those aren't the only factors. So student personality should weigh heavily in that reason. I typically tend to push my kids towards public forum, especially at the beginning if they're new, because then it gives them a support person. You only have to make half the case because your partner can make the other half of the case, right? You can be the pro side and your partner could be the con side, and you guys can work together and collaborate. And it lightens the workload for them and makes it less intimidating. Team makeup and the number of students matters too. If you have an odd number of students, maybe one person tries Lincoln Douglas and the other kids try public forum. Or maybe your team only has 2 or 3 students and you want to all do Lincoln Douglas so you can practice together and compete against each other in practice. Or if you have a large team, maybe you have 10 kids and you can do 5 public forum teams. So the actual team makeup, the number of kids you have, can definitely impact this. I think my biggest struggle this year is I have kids who are Lincoln Douglas from last year, as well as kids who are going to be new this year that are going to be in public forum. So I'm trying to diversify my time to kind of address those issues. Student experience, preference, and the topic also play a role. Like I said, I try to push the kids who are brand new to debate, have no debate experience, to be public forum because it's a lighter workload for them. And some of the essential skills are the same. Student preference matters, right? I always give my kids an opportunity. You can try Lincoln Douglas, you can try public forum. If you have one that you feel very, very strongly about, that you really like that style, then I try to support them in that. If it's a better fit for them, they're going to be more passionate about it. They're going to try harder and it's going to go better. I try to let them try both and see what they like. And then the topic sometimes is a little bit friendlier for one thing than another. I think the Lincoln Douglas topic for varsity and Lincoln Douglas this month is much more kid friendly to my kids at Fairdale, because medications are things that they're all familiar with, whereas the public forum topic of NATO and the Baltic states is something that most of them aren't quite as enthusiastic about. And so I'm like, gosh, for a first topic, I told them the good thing about this topic is we're not going to have anybody screaming at each other over the Baltic states, as we do have had in the past about immigration or gun legislation or things like that. Like, kids at Fairdale get really upset about some of those things. But I've never heard, most of them don't even know where the Baltic states are until we start talking about it in debate. So the topic itself can lend itself to the kids wanting to do Lincoln Douglas or public forum. And then obviously we actually discussed this earlier when we were just talking about our teams, the level of commitment and reliability. If your kid's not going to be reliable to show up, right? I had a student that I loved her to death, but 30 minutes before registration closes on a Saturday, I get a text like, oh yeah, I slept too late. I'm going to be there in an hour. Or, I was feeling sick last night and I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. I'm like, look, I can't continue to put you on a public forum team where you have a partner that's relying on you. You're going to have to do Lincoln Douglas the next tournament or two and give that a shot, because that's solo, that's on your own. So if they're not going to be committed, or you could do that 3-person team that Brian absolutely hates with public forum, be like, hey, this kid's kind of wishy-washy. They may or may not show up. And if they don't show up, then it gets to be a 2-person team, which Brian loves. But we can put them on as that 3rd person just to get them some experience in a public forum team. So, you kind of judge that and see how's it going to fit. You really don't want to just stick kids together just to stick them together, though, because that can be very, very frustrating for debaters, understandably so. And then the factor that I didn't want to put on my list at all, but I'd feel like I'm neglectful if I don't, is parent involvement or judges. Basically, you're supposed to submit a judge for every entry, every 2 entries. If you're submitting Lincoln Douglas and you put 2 kids in, that's 2 entries. So you need a judge for those 2 kids. If you're submitting a public forum team, you have 2 kids on one team and 2 kids on another team. That's 4 children that count for 2 entries. So if you're getting little to no parent involvement or adult involvement, teachers at your school, friends, this year I think it's going to be our first year or two where I actually have some debaters coming back to judge, which is very exciting for me. Some graduates that'll be judging at some point. At least they say they will. But getting judges to help out and submit for those entries is a costly thing. So you want to make sure that does get covered. And obviously, if you're in a low-income school, there's people that you can work with to try to help cover those costs. And ideally, it's not an issue, but not even cost-wise, a tournament doesn't run well if you don't have judges. And that's a true nightmare trying to pair judges if some teams really don't submit very many, and they're just like, oh, I'll just pay for them. Or if all the judges are from one team and they can't judge their own school, that gets to be a pain too. So those are just some ideas, some reasons for choosing, but just kind of a general breakdown. You know, I as a debate coach, I try to introduce both styles of debate. I try to start them in public forum, just because I feel like it is more novice friendly. You know, you can have no debate experience, and that way you have a partner to rely on, build your case with. And then when you win, you can cheer each other on and tell how good you did. And when you lose, you guys can cry together and be like, oh yeah, we should have said this. And it gives them one more set of eyes in the room. So if, as a coach, if you're not there, you know, a lot of times their partner can be like, well, you should have said this, or your say, well, they said this and we didn't have anything to come back against it. So it's one more set of eyes and ears and notes to go over when you do it. Yeah, there's lots of good reasons for both. Really kind of comes down to the students' personalities, their experience, their preferences, but we try to support them in that. So it's kind of a quick overview, but I think hits most of the main ideas. So I'll stop sharing. Do you guys have any other questions before I go make dinner for my children? Cool. If you ever want to hear some music, I can have Rowan chime up the band.
I'm sad we didn't get to hear that.
Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
Oh.
That's when I first started coaching, I literally got assigned to be debate coach as a K-tip project. But it was, oh yeah, your leadership project is to start a debate team. And I had never done debate, never been involved in debate, never seen a debate. I'm not even joking. And so it was very, very intimidating, just the vernacular, all the styles, all the different choices. Nobody ever really broke it down for me. And eventually, you know, you kind of see it a few times and get used to it, go to a few tournaments, talk to other coaches, and it's extremely helpful. And now we have a great league director as well that, you know, at least seems to care to answer your questions and respond and kind of provide some guidance. So we're really excited for all you here and online watching this eventually to come out, be involved, and get those kids in, because they'll do great and they'll love it.
Excited to be able to get everything rolling. And I will vouch for John as well when he came on, and the time when U of L was still hosting and was stumbling around those old buildings and finding his way around physically as well as mentally, and doing a pretty good job of it.
All right, well, I appreciate you guys. I'm going to head out for now. I'll talk to you later.
All right, thank you, John. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and finish up with a quick foray of tab room for our newer coaches. Great, just to give a brief showdown of how registering and managing your team on tab room looks. Before we do that, since it is integrated into tab room, part of that is going to be covering what we expect of everybody on tournament day and as a part of the registration process, especially with digital tournaments. Every tournament invite starts with a very important piece of information that I think some folks look at and treat like the godly piece of advice that it is, and some folks view it as a recommendation. And the folks who treat it like a recommendation, we know you're doing your best, and we know it's not always your fault. We know parents sometimes treat it like a recommendation. We know your students sometimes treat it like a recommendation. We know sometimes life happens. But it is that the close of registration is usually, for our tournaments, 15 minutes before round one begins. And that is because in order for a tournament to run smoothly and that first round to get off, we need to ensure that everybody is checked into the tournament. Everybody is either physically on site or sitting in front of a computer screen ready to go, and that all of the judges are there and ready to go. It is and isn't as easy as clicking a button. From the tab room side, this is what it looks like. We have a list of schools that we have to go into, and we are going to take on Sarah from a tournament last year. She had a small entry for this tournament. And if everything goes nice and easy, and I will edit this out before posting it, I promise you, Sarah. But we can go to general and we can confirm that they are on site and everything is wonderful. If it is a large entry, where we have to make drops, or we have to add in an entry, or we have to change student names, that takes time. And if you are waiting until the last minute, again, maybe students haven't responded to you until 7:40 or 7:45, or judges haven't responded to you until 7:40 or 7:45. The longer that process takes, the longer it takes for the tournament to get going. At some point, we have to go back and hit that button to confirm that you're there so we can get the tournament going. And if everybody isn't there, that's going to cause problems in round one. And nobody is happy when that happens. So it is of vital importance that you, as the coach, get off of that page. We're no longer looking at personal information. It is of vital importance that you, as a coach, stress to your students and stress to your judges, whether you bribe them, whether you lie to them, whether you find a way to pay somebody to hunt them down and get them to their computer that much earlier, that they get check into you by the appropriate time, so that we can get everything going and aren't running behind. Because students love competing, students love debating, but they don't want to be there any longer than they have to be. And I know you don't want to be there any longer than you have to be. The corollary to that is that we need to make sure everybody is present, whether virtually or physically, when we return to in-person tournaments for the entire time. If you are the coach, the assigned, whether that is an assigned teacher, assigned coach, whatever that may be for your school, you need to be accessible by the tab room if it is a virtual tournament, or present at the tournament site until all of your students have left. A lot easier for a virtual tournament, but we have had issues with that in the past. And even though it is demanding sometimes for a physical tournament, if parents are not arriving on time to pick up their students, you need to ensure that every one of your students have safely been picked up before you leave, because that is, and as silly as it might be, I have to say, your responsibility to ensure that your students are safe and safely picked up. We do not want to have to report to your administration that there have been students stranded at one of our tournament sites. Please don't make us do that. Finally, making sure that you are performing everything else within the proper deadlines. Everybody was really good about that last year. 2 of our newer coaches are in our live session here with Sarah and Elizabeth. I just want to say thank you. It's hard to come in as a new coach and do it, but y'all were wonderful about getting everything in on time, and our larger schools as well did a really good job. It's all, most of the expectations that we have and that we have trouble meeting are with the newer, those day of expectations. We will be uploading, along with this weekend, some videos to help explain some of those processes for judges, navigating tab room, navigating the NSDA campus side of things, navigating electronic ballots, and hopefully that'll help get everything squared away a little bit as well. But for newer coaches as well coming in, navigating tab room and learning how to manage your team with it can be a bit of a daunting process. This is going to assume that you have created an account that you have managed to set up your team, which is a relatively simple process, but there are cut that part out, numerous guides for as well. Okay, I'm so sorry. All right, once you've got a new school or team created through the Your Account page set up, managing your team and registering for a competition is dead simple through the Tournaments Open for Registration section at the top of the page. You will have selected circuits to register for when once you've created your tournament. And if you need to change or register for new circuits, for example, the Wilson Wyatt Debate League circuit or the Kentucky High School circuit, you can change that by going to the Circuits tab at any time, and it will show you a list of circuits that you can join. Just make sure to actually spell it out and click join. We're going to join the Wyatt September tournament. Your default coach or your head coach will be selected as the default contact information, and it will confirm your tournament deadlines. And you want to confirm saving contacts. It'll give you on the right a number of printouts, allow you to confirm and print out your registration by event, by competitor, in your Excel format, and an invoice. If you're a Wilson Wyatt Debate League member, your invoice, which is available here or also under the Fees tab, is not going to be correct until a few days before or after the tournament. Every tournament is set up to show both registration fees as well as fines. Wilson Wyatt Debate League members will have student registration fees waived, but we do not go through and do that until a couple of days before the tournament. And I'll show you what that does look like in a minute. To register students, there's two ways to do that. First is to go to the Entries tab, and you can simply, on the right side where it says Add Entry To, choose which event you want to register in. Choose Varsity Lincoln Douglas. Choose your student. And you'll see once we've chosen our event, we can see what our deadline to add is, what our deadline to drop, when the fees, student registration fees would still be owed for, and when there is a nuisance fee owed for any changes after. And click Add Entry. And Strawberry is now competing in Varsity Lincoln Douglas. We can also go to the Competitors tab and do it by student instead of entry. So we will add Chicken Nugs. And we will add Chicken Nugs to JV Lincoln Douglas. And save changes. Going back brings us back to competitors, and we can see Strawberry and Chicken Nugs both registered. We can see our totals on the right-hand side. And if we go back to the Entries tab, we can see all of our entries here as well. And we can filter by each event or view all. To view judges, or add judges, I'm sorry, we'll select Debate or Congress. And choose the judge from our judge list. Because this is Because this is an online tournament, we've required that judges have their account linked. This is going to be common for any online tournament or any tournament that uses online ballots. If your judge does not have a linked tab room account, you will not be able to register them until they do. We'll show you in a minute how you can manually link them if you know their email address. Otherwise, they will have to follow the steps to do that. And at which point then you can link them or add them as a judge. The fees portion now shows 1 entry in JVLD, 1 entry in varsity LD, and a fine for a missing judge. Closer to the tournament date, these 2 will go away and the invoice will only show the $50. You can print the full invoice and you would be able to submit this for payment. We recommend doing this after the tournament in case there are any additional fines that have to be assessed, like your judge didn't show up. Over at the beginning here is a super cool feature called signups. If you have a large team, you can choose to enable signups so that the students on your team with linked tab room accounts, which should be everybody, since they will need that to compete at an online tournament, can sign up themselves for the tournament and request to be registered. You then go to the signups tab, and everybody who is requested will show up under the event that they've requested. And you can choose to accept or reject each competitor manually or accept all. You can also send emails to every judge that you've registered or competitor or their parents. And that, simple as it is the process of registering and managing for a tournament. Competitors can always be dropped with a red trash can. And so long as it is done before that drop deadline, there will never be any fees assessed by the tournament. When you go back to your email address, you can manage your competitors and judges. You can see if you have a phone number and an email address linked for each judge. And putting in an email address up there and clicking search will allow you to link an account to that judge. And so if we go back to our tournaments, and we can see now why it's September, instead of saying register, it says entries. We can now go over to judges, go into debate, add Brian Hewott. We can put in notes to the tab room. We can put in permanent notes. Email and phone number show up. If applicable, we can choose in any qualifications that are needed and save. And now all judges, all competitors are registered. And the only fees that show up are the 1 entry fee that will be covered for the Wyatt tournament. Most tournaments, if you're competing outside of the Wilson Wyatt Debate League, I do want to make an addendum because I mentioned doing that, processing that invoice after the tournament. You would want to process that before the tournament if you're competing outside of the Wilson Wyatt Debate League, because you would need to pay for that at the time of registration. Because our tournaments are free for members, We do not expect you to pay until any incurred fees until after the tournament. And if you're watching and are not a member, that goes for you as well. You're more than welcome to pay your registration fees after the tournament. At that same time, you would pay any incurred fines, even if you do not have any incurred fines. On the competitors tab, in the same way that you can view a linked account for your judges, you can view if any of your students have linked tab room accounts. You can also view their competitive records, tournaments that they are registered in and have competed in. Whether you can change whether or not they are novices. If they are novices, they do not need to compete in novice at a tournament, but they will be flagged as a novice, and the tab room will be able to see that. Their graduation record will, or year is entered when you create them, and can be changed if you made a mistake. You can choose to enter their gender if you wish. You can enter any dietary notes, which is awesome for when we return to in-person tournaments. It helps tournament administrators awesomely. Hint, hint. The phonetic pronunciation of their name also helps tournament administrators come awards time. Hint, hint. And manually, you can link their tab room address up here in the same way you link their judges. And that is your basic tab room access and management for a school. Close out of screen sharing. So was there anything, Sarah or Elizabeth, that you'd come across, or any problems that you'd come across that you had any questions about in the last year?
Thank you for that. That was helpful. And then also knowing that the video will be available, like just to, refresh is great. I think I wanted to clarify a couple of things that were said earlier. So I had victory briefs last year. And so, I guess, does any of that stuff change because I transferred schools as a teacher?
When you say any of this stuff change, what any of which stuff?
I guess so. I'm sorry. Like victory briefs, where it sounded like I just would need a code because I'd made an account.
Right. So that part will not change at all. You will need to change on tab room and on NSDA. You'll need to change your school affiliation. That can. That is actually a wonderful question about doing that, because I'm not 100% sure on that process, especially since DOS, I know, has been an active member or had an active team in the past.
Yes.
So
really,
you would need
about me disengaging from the Shawnee one.
Yes, yeah, you would need to both make sure you gave up Shawnee and then secured DOS as if they still had an active coach registered.
So I am
because a lot of time. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm co-coaching with the previous coach, but a team hasn't been active for a couple of years. But she's familiar with the stuff, so I know it was there. I don't know if things go inactive, after a certain amount of time. But it's the same woman. But yeah, it's been a couple of years.
Okay, yeah, no. If it's I would assume they won't go inactive. At least on tab room. So long as she was registered on tab room and still is registered on tab room, that is still there, and she would be able to add you as a coach for the school. And then for NSDA, once she renews that registration for the school, she should be able to add you as an assistant coach for the school. That should take care of any issues there. I'm making an assumption that she was already listed as the coach for the school, but I don't see why she would not have been.
And then for victory briefs, I should just send you an email and ask for the discount code.
And I'm actually just going to go ahead and email that to you right now. Or actually, I guess rather, I'll just forward you the same email I sent to Elizabeth a little bit ago. Assuming I can actually get my forwards to work. There it goes. Okay. So yeah, both you and Elizabeth should have the code in your inboxes now.
Thank you for that. Yes, I just got the email.
You are welcome. Anything else? Any issues maybe that you ran across last year that you think would be helpful, or additional questions that have come up?
I just wonder if we should do our own judges training like prior to tournament maybe, or if there's something that we can point to judges that. I think my only issue was that like with a lot of tournaments, someone would join the judges room and then just very quickly be put in a match and maybe not know what they're doing. And I felt that way myself, like when first put in to judge a match, that I'm not so sure I'm doing a very good job. So more training would be amazing if there's a way to do it.
Yes, definitely. We recommend coaches do complete their own judges training when possible. And I know a lot of the times it seems like that is one additional burden to have upon you, but an idea for that, especially with practices still, it sounds like both of you have been doing some practices online or online components to them, is always feel free to, if parents are able to, they can watch practice debates, or if you record a practice debate for parents to watch is one opportunity to start beginning that practice, or beginning that judge training session, so that the first time they're watching a debate round is not at a tournament. It's easy, it's easy to say, oh, go watch a debate round on YouTube, but there's literally thousands of debate rounds on YouTube, and trying to narrow it down and pick one out is not an easy process. That being said, part of the videos that we will be uploading to YouTube alongside these will be not only an introduction to an SDA campus and filling out an online ballot, but some tips and tricks to filling out an online ballot. So what makes helpful feedback? So that I think that alongside, seeing what sort of feedback you as a coach want your students to receive will definitely be helpful for newer judges from your school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, we tried in the past to run sessions at the beginning of every tournament and also at the beginning of the year, and neither worked in getting judges up to speed. Just always time constraints, unfortunately. So, all right, Sarah Elizabeth, anything else? Any final thoughts from either of you?
I just want to say thank you. Yeah, thank you again for this.
All
Yes,
right,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
This
Thank you
is
both for
very
joining.
helpful.
Thank you both for joining tonight. I'll go ahead and let you both leave. This will be uploaded this weekend along with those other videos I mentioned and the wonderful student presentations from Tuesday. I know Sarah got to witness that and can vouch for how wonderful they all were.
Very.
So we will get these all up. I'll send out an email and we'll make a decision about the September tournament as well. So thank you both. Have a great week. Have a great evening.
Thank you.